Hello, and in this Part 1 IELTS speaking video, I'm going to look at the topic of public parks. However, I'm not only going to focus on public parks, I'm going to point out some things that will be useful to improve your IELTS writing as well, so I hope you find this video useful. Are public parks very important in your country? Well, in urban areas, yes, I would say they play a vital role. However, in rural areas, they are not as essential. In major cities such as London, there are a vast number of public spaces, and they are frequented by locals and holidaymakers alike. So in IELTS writing and speaking, you often need to refer to either the countryside or towns and cities. And so it is important to remember to use different phrases for these. So for example, when we're talking about the countryside, you can say in rural areas, in agricultural areas. And when talking about towns and cities, you can say in urban areas, in urbanized areas. So for lexical resource both in writing and speaking, it is so important that you're using a range of vocabulary. Another way you can improve your range of vocabulary is, in this question, are public parks very important? And notice I've said they play a vital role. This is what we call a collocation, words that go together. They play a vital role. You can also say they play a key role. And this means they are important. What many IELTS candidates do is just repeat words from the question, and this is not going to get you high band scores. You need to paraphrase. So another way I've paraphrased important is with the word essential. In major cities, this just means in big cities, but all the time I'm trying to use something more complex. A vast number of public spaces. This means a large number of public spaces. So very useful to learn this, a vast number of. They are frequented by. This is a very useful word if you're talking about your town or city as well. Frequented means visited, so they're frequented by locals and holidaymakers alike. Another thing that many IELTS candidates do is just repeat the word people. You need to have lots of different ways, both in writing and speaking, of saying people. So locals means local people, local residents, holidaymakers, tourists. So whenever you find yourself going to say or write the word people, think about an alternative. Can you make it more complex and add to your grammatical range? And this use of the word alike at the end, it's used after referring to two groups of people or things to show that both groups are included. So I'm saying they're frequented by both locals and holidaymakers, but I've made it more complex. They're frequented by locals and holidaymakers alike. And so we use it after the two nouns. So look at the example sentence. The government and the general public alike need to address the issue of climate change. So it's like saying both the government and the general public, but I've made it more complex. Do you think there are enough public gardens or parks in your hometown? Now I'm going to give two answers to this question just because I want to teach you some more vocabulary, and if you live in a place where there are lots, then you can use one answer, or if you live in a village where there are not many, you can use the other answer. I'm currently living in a remote rural location, therefore there are no public areas such as these, as there is no need for them. My house is surrounded by fields, and I feel very fortunate because I think I would struggle in a built-up area. So instead of saying I live in, I'm currently living in, just to add to your grammatical range and use continuous tenses, which IELTS examiners like to hear. A remote rural location. So location instead of saying place. Remote isolated, so lots of complex language. My house is surrounded by, some good grammar there too, some passive grammar. I feel very fortunate, so instead of saying I feel lucky, I feel very fortunate. I would struggle. I think struggle is a very useful word, and it's also a noun, a struggle, for something that you would find difficult. I would struggle in a built-up area. A built-up area is an area with lots of houses in it, so an area like a town or city which has lots of buildings in it. So for example, this picture shows a built-up area. So it's another way of saying a town or city. So let's take a look at the other answer. Because I'm living in such a densely populated city, there are nowhere near enough public spaces for the size of the population. Sadly, I do not see this situation changing in the near future because of the lack of space to create them. So again, in this answer, I've used present continuous because I'm living a densely populated city, very useful for describing your hometown if you come from a city like Tokyo or Seoul or London or Beijing. Densely populated means lots of people live there. Nowhere near enough, and it means not enough. In the near future, very, very useful because we talk a lot in IELTS speaking about the future, and so you can make it more complex. In the near future, meaning soon. And the final question I'm going to look at is, what are the benefits of having public parks and gardens? The main benefit is that they are public spaces that anyone can use. In urbanised areas, there is such a lack of space that many people are living in apartments, and therefore they don't have their own gardens. On top of that, it is said that city parks improve our physical and mental health, strengthen our communities, and make our cities and neighbourhoods more attractive places to live and work. So you can see I've used in urbanised areas. There is such a lack of space, a lack of meaning not enough. Many people are living in apartments. On top of that, this is like saying in addition, but it's slightly less formal, so it's suitable for IELTS speaking. It is said that this is some very complex grammar and it's very useful for writing and speaking. It is believed that, it is suggested that, it is felt that. Learn these kind of phrases to put them in your speaking and writing. So they improve our physical and mental health. We talk a lot nowadays about mental health, and so it's how you're feeling inside your head. So physical and mental health. Strengthen our communities can be used a lot in IELTS writing, that phrase. And cities and neighbourhoods. Neighbourhoods is just a word that means the area where you live. So, although this video has just focused on parks and gardens, I'm sure you'll agree that there is a lot of language in here that is transferable to other topics and transferable to IELTS writing. And when you're doing your IELTS preparation, it is important to learn words and particularly phrases that you can transfer from one topic to another and you can use in writing as well. And this will give you the best chance of getting a higher band score in writing and speaking. Thank you for watching.